Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. I want to thank you so much for joining us. First, I got to put this on there. It's an alarm. The IRS is in crisis. So says the Taxpayer Advocate. And I just thought I'd like to use stuff if I can. So today, welcome to today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. This is Thursday, January 13th, the year of our Lord, 2022. And there is a crisis. It's the IRS crisis. And we're going to talk about that. Won't you join us? So this is from a report that the IRS, let me put this, take out that, we'll put this one on. The IRS is in crisis. Again, not my words. I think, having lived through it the last couple of years, I think it's true that there is a crisis. But this is from the Taxpayer Advocate's office, which is an independent office of the IRS. Just what it says, it advocates to help taxpayers with IRS problems to get through some of the bureaucracy. And I've had mixed results with the Taxpayer Advocate. I know they're good people who try to do good work, but it's in a tough job, and I get that. But that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. The every year the Taxpayer Advocate has to put out a new report by law. They're required under the Internal Revenue Code to create a report and give 10 recommendations every year. And so that's what they've did. But first I want to start with this. With this article, IRS in Crisis, Government Watchdog Says. And so let's read a little bit about this article because I think there's a lot of good information here. The Internal Revenue Service began the last filing season with a backlog of 11.7 million returns from 2020, and the 2019 returns were not cleared until June 2021, according to the new report from the Taxpayer Advocate. And, just so this is the report. I went and got a copy of the report. As I mentioned a lot here on this show, the IRS is chock full of information if you know where to look. They have statistics and numbers and reports. They're a government agency on everything. Again, sometimes it's very hard to find, and then once you find it, sometimes it's hard to dissect it or interpret it because there's so much on there. So this article does a pretty good job. We'll go through the report too in just a minute. Why it matters. During 2021, tens of millions of taxpayers were forced to wait extraordinarily long periods of time for the IRS to process their tax returns, issue their refunds, and address their correspondence. The IRS is in crisis. That's where I got it from. I didn't make it up, and I'll show it to you in the report where she says that. Driving the news, the report details the millions of returns that are remaining from the most challenging year taxpayers and tax professionals have ever experienced. The IRS received 17 million original Form 1040 returns on paper, the traditional individual income tax return, which have been taking at least 8 months to process. And this is really about the paper returns. Electronic returns get done fairly quickly, and it's the paper returns that create a problem. And a lot of this is happening because even those that are done electronically have errors in them. And we talked about this. This was a show. We did the math errors, the math error letter that many people got. When you get that letter, that means there's a problem, and the IRS now has to look at it, have a person look at it. And that just adds to the problem. And I think that's going to happen a lot this year also. There's a lot, the tax credits, the stimulus checks, a lot of things that happen in the IRS that people are going to make errors on in their tax return. And that's going to create another backlog. And this is what they're already telling us. They're not saying there might be a problem. They're saying there is a problem, there's going to be a problem, and it's going to be a bigger problem than you ever thought. That's what they're telling us. The IRS also has more than 2 million unprocessed employers' quarterly returns and about 5 million pieces of taxpayer correspondence left to process. I talk about this a lot, about getting a power of attorney to the IRS. They're getting much better. They're clearing up. But I think one of the ways they cleared up is they just threw a lot of my stuff out. That was sitting. They just got rid of it, made me do it again after months and months and months and months. The report also found that the IRS customer service representatives, here it is, answered about 11% of all the calls from taxpayers seeking assistance, a demand that surged throughout the pandemic. And that's the average throughout the year. During tax season, it was much worse than 11%. The report comes days after the IRS on Monday warned the staffing shortages and backlogs could lead to a frustrating tax season, the Washington Post reports. I didn't include that paper because yesterday we talked about the cash reports, but that'd be another one that we should probably look at. There is no way to sugarcoat the year 2021 in tax administration. From the perspective of tens of millions of taxpayers, it was horrendous, per the report. Over the past year, there have been a tendency to focus on the unique challenges posed by the pandemic and to attribute IRS service and technology shortcomings to these circumstances. There is no doubt the pandemic has had a big impact, but taxpayer service and technology at the IRS were inadequate long before the pandemic. Absolutely true. So I don't want to go through all. I think I'm at the end of it anyway. So let's go through the report a little bit, and just the 10 we'll review very quickly. The 10, if we have time, then maybe we'll go through some of the more details of what's going on. So here we can go. Every one of these has every one of the 10 recommendations has different sections, but let's just look at the table of contents and we'll see what's up. So number 1, processing and refund delays. That's the number 1. Excessive processing and refund delays harm taxpayers. Number 2, IRS recruitment, hiring, and training. They don't have the people. Number 3, telephone and in-person service. Taxpayers face significant challenges reaching IRS representatives due to long-standing deficiencies and pandemic complications. Both of them. Number 4, transparency and clarity. The IRS lacks proactive transparency and fails to provide timely, accurate, and clear information. Absolutely. Anybody who's dealt with the IRS will say that this is exactly right. Number 5, filing season delays. Millions of taxpayers experience difficulties and challenges in the 2021 tax season. Well, of course, that's true. Number 6, online accounts. IRS online accounts do not have sufficient functionality and integration with existing tools to meet the needs of taxpayers and practitioners. At the beginning, in the middle of this year, they started a new program where you can upload your client as a tax practitioner. My client could go online. I could put something online and upload the 2848, which is the power of attorney. My client could accept it or acknowledge it online and say yes. And that was supposed to be automatic. And then I could get access very quickly. It didn't work. I did it for many clients. I think we got 2 eventually, but most of them I never did get. They never went through. Either my clients never saw it on their side, or they saw it and they couldn't okay it, or whatever the problem was. It didn't work. So I stopped using that system because it didn't work. And as I'm waiting for it to work, we're losing time because I need that information from the IRS, and I can't get it without a power of attorney. That's filed. Sounds like a good idea. I can tell you right now, the Illinois Department of Revenue, if I send them a power of attorney via email, it happens the same day. I get acknowledgement, and then I can go on and talk to people about my client's case. With the IRS, it might take 2 weeks. Some of these, they were taking months, and it's supposed to be within 15 days. That's not exaggeration, months. And again, some of these never did get through, and I had to put them through again and again and again because I think that they had so many, they just got rid of them, made you do it again because there was just the backlog was so great. They could never keep up with the new ones and do the backlog. And so instead of starting on the backlog and then never getting to the new ones, they just said, well, we're not going to do the backlog. That's my opinion about what happened. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we experienced on my side. As an attorney, we could, some of these just never got processed, months and months and months, and we sent them in 2, 3, 4 times and still never got processed. Eventually they have. They started coming through a couple months ago, and now the numbers are back. It's not quite 2 weeks yet or 15 days, but it's getting much better. When things are terrible and they and then they're just bad, that's a big improvement. Digital communications. Digital communication tools are too limited, making communication with the IRS unnecessarily difficult. Number 8, e-filing barriers. Electronic filing barriers increase taxpayer burden, cause processing delays, and waste IRS resources. They save so much money on electronic returns. And I've gone through this on the show. Maybe we'll have to do that again because I'm going to go through this. They keep pointing to they don't have enough money. And this is we just need more money. We got to train more people. We need more money. We need better technology. We need more money. We need better telephones. We need more money. It's always we need more money. We need more. And then they point to see our budget is down, and it is down. But so too are the number of returns, paper returns filed. And that's where a bulk of their money was spent before. And if you don't have that burden, why do you need as much money? Well, the answer is you probably don't, although they keep telling us that they do. So anyway, and I understand that every organization is going to say that they need more money. Every organization. And, they say, and then they'll tell you, well, we have limited resources. I'm going to go back to this because I would say, this is what you always hear. We have limited resources. Even if we gave you double the budget, which is what this is in the Build Back Better plan, they almost want to double the budget. You still have limited resources. You don't have infinite resources. You already have $14 billion a year. That's right, $14 billion a year, and you want to make it to $24 billion or $28 billion or whatever it is, and you'll still tell us that you need more money because you can't do everything that you want. Nobody can. That you have to use with what you have. And my own opinion is $14 billion is a lot of money. You should be able to answer the phone more than 14% of the time. My own opinion. But I understand, that I get it. Everybody wants more money and everything. And bureaucracy costs a lot of money just to run. I get it. Collection, number 10. Oh, here, wait, just a moment. 10. This is 9. Correspondence audits. This is very important now. And this is what I talked about yesterday on the Cash App. Okay. The Cash App is going to create a lot of these correspondence audits. And you'll say, Attorney Leahy, what's a correspondence audit? A correspondence audit is when they find something on your tax return that doesn't match. Okay, so for instance, I got a 1099 from my employer, but I didn't put it on my tax return. Well, the 1099 also goes to the IRS. And so the IRS says, well, we got a 1099 here. And then they look at your tax return because it's got your tax ID number on it. Then they look at your tax return with the same tax ID number and say, wait a minute, you don't have a 1099 here. What happened? That's what a correspondence audit is. And that's what's going to happen with the Cash Apps, right? You're going to get a 1099K and people aren't going to file it because they don't know. They say, well, it's not taxable. They have been told all this time it doesn't matter. And then the IRS will say, well, wait, we got a 1099K, but you didn't put it on your tax return. Why didn't you put it on your tax return? That's what a correspondence audit is. Okay. And so low-income taxpayers encounter communication barriers that hinder audit resolution, leading to increased burdens and downstream consequences for taxpayers, the IRS, TAS, and the tax courts. But it's just not tax. It's not low-income taxpayers. And as my son pointed out, low-income people don't pay taxes. How can they be taxpayers? Well, some low-income people pay taxpayers, pay taxes. And some get the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit and all these other tax credit. So they have to file a return in order to get that. And so they still have to use the IRS services, even if they don't make enough money to pay taxes. You have to prove that. Number 10, and here's to my own heart, collection, because that's what I do most of. I do a lot of collections. IRS collection policies and procedures negatively impact low-income taxpayers. Well, let me tell you this, and I didn't go back to this, but I should have gone back to the page. Let me tell you this. IRS collection policies and procedures negatively impact, they don't have to say low-income taxpayers. Taxpayers, all taxpayers, not just low-income taxpayers, all taxpayers have this problem. They're negatively impacted. So I don't know why they limit it to low-income taxpayers. But okay, so let me go back to this report, and I'm just going to point out here where. So IRS deserves credit for playing with the hand it's dealt. And this is one on the workload side. The number of individual taxpayers the IRS serves has increased by about 19%, as the number of Form 1040 series returns rose from about 142 million in that year 2010 to about 169 million in 2021. But what they fit, and then while there is no perfect measure of the IRS's workload, return filings are a good approximation because most IRS work, including fraud screening, telephone calls, audits, collection actions, everything, and other downstream key off the number of taxpayers filing returns. But here's what they don't tell you. From 2010 to 2021, the number of electronically filed returns has skyrocketed. It's almost 95% now. Then it was, I don't even know if I've done this before, and I don't want to go off and come up with a number offhand, but it was less than 90%. It was less than 80%. It was less. It was much less. And so now a lot of these, they're using, well, see, look, the number of returns have gone up 20%, but our budget has gone down and we're doing more work. But actually, you're not doing more work because electronic filing is taking a lot of your work away. And so again, I understand why they say this, but it takes somebody to point out these obvious things. Obvious to me. I work with the IRS every day, so it's obvious to me that their workload hasn't increased 20% because they get 20% more returns. During COVID pandemic, call volume skyrocketed, reaching a historic level of calls, which has made it even harder for taxpayers to receive assistance. In fiscal year 2021, the IRS received 282 million phone calls. Customer service representatives only answered about 32 million, or 11% of those calls. And many of those calls were answered, but then dropped. Because I tell you right now, I get a lot of calls answered, and then in the middle of my conversation, it gets dropped. I would think that those counted as answered. That meant most callers could not obtain answers to their tax law questions, get help with account problems, or speak with a customer service representative to respond to compliance notice. Among the lucky one in 9 callers who was able to reach a CSR, the IRS reported that hold times averaged 23 minutes. It's much longer than that. Practitioners and taxpayers have reported that hold times were often much longer, and frustration and dissatisfaction was high throughout the year, which with the low level of phone service. Absolutely true. This is all absolutely true. The most serious problem encountered by taxpayers in 2021 were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, but they resulted from long-standing underfunding of the IRS. This, I want to point this out because they always go back to we don't have enough money. It's not our fault. And I get that. I'm going to keep saying that because I do understand that, but it's really not about the money. In 2019, Congress passed the Taxpayer First Act due to its concerns about the IRS performance. The title of the act was intended to send a clear message. The IRS should reassess its business practices to prioritize taxpayer needs. But of course, that was before the pandemic, and now they can say, well, the pandemic caused us to miss everything. So So as I mentioned earlier, the number of individual tax returns, a reasonable approximation of workload, but it isn't a reasonable has increased by 19% since it isn't a reasonable approximation of workload. It's just not. And then it talks about more funding. And then the first thing, they need you to revamp the IRS budget and provide sufficient funding. Authorize the IRS to establish minimum competency standards for federal tax return preparers. They tried this a couple of years ago, and the Supreme Court overruled, said they don't have the authority to do this. They need Congress to act on that. Okay, so I missed that. So let me see if I can find crisis, because I want to just show. I just want to show that where this report says there's a crisis, so you don't think I'm making that up. Not that you would think I'm making it up. The IRS is in crisis and needs to apply resources to its core mission, processing returns and paying the corresponding refunds. I agree with that. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm coughing so much now. Anyway, that's where we are. Again, today I forgot to say like and share. So I'm going to say it now. Like and share. Please like and share our content. Again, tax stuff is the core of all news. And this is the tax news, the core of all news. How do they get the money, the government, and how do they spend it? That's the core of news. And that's what we cover. So I'm going to ask you to like and share. The IRS spends, okay? And remember, get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com and get yourself a copy, freeirsbook.com. And so thanks so much for joining us here today. I look forward to seeing you. Now, tomorrow is the Watch Talk Radio Day. About 2 o'clock, we have Joe Menges, an attorney Joe Menges, friend of the show, been around a long time. He's going to talk about his practice. He helps people with tax, property tax issues and other things here in Lake County. So join us, won't you? So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Thanks again.